So welcome everyone, and I'd like to welcome Katharine Weinmann. Katharine is with Panache Consulting and Coaching, and I'll be talking to Katharine today about facilitation, what it is, why we should all be developing facilitation skills, and in addition, Katharine will share a few tips to get us started. And then at the end, I'd like to let you know about the online course, The Art of Facilitation, Creating the Conditions for Effective Engagement. This is a course that Katharine delivers for eLearning to Flourish at Kaizen Solutions, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about it at the end of our interview. So just to introduce Katharine to you, Katharine brings 3 decades of experience in helping individuals and groups claim their inner and collective wisdom, to grow in compassion and clarity, and to take wise action to create futures. Solo and in partnership with kind and skillful colleagues, she designs respectful conversation spaces for people to remember their deep gladness and to engage with each other to co-create meaningful and effective responses that meet the world's deep need. As an internationally certified professional facilitator, Katharine has studied with some of the world's most accomplished, creative, and innovative thought leaders in the leadership development, coaching, and group facilitation fields. Together with her graduate degree in clinical social work, she brings a vibrant, graceful, and grounding presence to her work with others. Welcome, Katharine.
Well, thanks so much, Val.
So, Katharine, I want us to talk about facilitation. So, what is facilitation and where might somebody use it?
Well, if you were to go into the dictionary and look at facilitation, it really quite simply means to make easy, looking at the word facile, to sort of make easy. And though, from the work that I do and also from the students who have participated in this course over the last couple of terms, I think what we're realizing is that it's maybe about making easier for the groups that we're working with to be able to realize outcomes. And those outcomes can be, varied as far as getting a project off the ground. It may be simply convening and having people feel comfortable to share in a group. It might be a weekly staff meeting so that the time and the energy and the good thinking is used well to be able to accomplish, whether it be tasks or whether it be just a sense of team and a good sense of morale, in a variety of ways. It also can be, and this is when we look at how facilitation is shifting, it may be that what we're looking at is how do we, with our skills and with our presence, create and hold a space for new ideas to emerge. And when we talk about new ideas, it may be to help a group go someplace that they haven't been before so that they're creative and innovative.
So it sounds like there's a lot of places that we can use facilitation in our day-to-day work, in our communities, almost even in our families.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, do we really need training? Isn't facilitation just talking to other people?
Well, increasingly, I think it's less about talking. And so again, if I think about some of the comments from the students who just participated this past fall, I think one of the things that they were really struck about was that it isn't necessarily about talking. It's about how do I intentionally create those conditions, such as extending a good invitation, helping people feel safe and comfortable, knowing that their questions and their comments will be regarded, knowing how to have enough heat and perhaps enough divergence of opinion and perspective, which may in fact move us into some conflict, but to be able to navigate that well and help the group be able to do that. One of the metaphors that we use in the course is that you're there as a conductor, like in a symphony, and while you're not playing an instrument, i.e. maybe talking, you are there to be able to bring the best out of each one of those musicians to be able to create this beautiful, beautiful piece of music.
I love.
Yes. So it's. I personally, and again, the feedback I get from people is that there is a lot more to this if we're bringing to mind a degree of intentionality.
Mm-hmm. And if we think about ourselves being that conductor, that really gives me a clear idea about what you're doing. Like as you're saying, you're not playing an instrument yourself. So that's the part about when you say it's less and less about talking, right? You're facilitating and drawing out from others. Yes. So Katharine, if you had to tell somebody or sum it up, say, like, what are 3 key takeaways when it comes to facilitation?
That's a really good question, Val. I think the one would be, and I open this course with a really beautiful quote that is used a lot in the sort of field of facilitation that I'm involved in, which in fact is called the Art of Hosting. So even that perhaps conjures for people a different way of entering into these situations. And it's a quote that says, if the group is an art form of the future, then convening groups is an artistry we must cultivate to fully harvest the promise of that future. It's a quote by Jacob Needleman from a website called Centered on the Edge. And so I know in the various places that I find myself working, the different students that I have that participate in this art of facilitating, that more and more we are working in groups. And so what does it mean to be able to work effectively in communities, as you said, even in our families, in a meeting, if we're sitting on a committee, if we're a volunteer on a board? More and more, I think we're coming back to that solutions are found when we're working ensemble, when we're in groups. And so there is an artistry for that. And so I think that that's the first thing. And how is it that we want to effectively convey our respect for those people in that group, that they come with a wisdom that we want to surface very quickly. Mm-hmm. That's one takeaway. I think another takeaway is that one of the big things that we each, when we're working in this way, we need to get comfortable with not knowing. And that can be quite different when a lot of us have developed a competency, we have maybe content expertise, but that a lot of times that's not so much what's required as is our presence. And by that what I mean is sort of feeling comfortable in our own being, and in a way that is conveyed to the group. And that we're less about bringing our own expertise to bear, but really inviting what it is that the group has, and trusting that they come with experience, they come with a wisdom that we want to be able to access. And then I think closely related to that would be the whole idea of resistance. Those of us who have worked with groups and in communities, we're pretty familiar with that idea of resistance. And I think a significant shift for me, a reframing of that, has been to understand resistance as a gift. That it's been said that people who are cynical and resistant are often those who have had great passion and felt it's been thwarted or devalued. So what's the gift in the resistance that I may be receiving from someone in a group? And I think very significantly, what might be the resistance that I'm bringing into a group, either because of my own anxiety, my own skepticism, my own questionable commitment that in fact begins to trigger resistance from the group. And that's been a huge aha for many of us in this work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Katharine, those are excellent takeaways. I'm just thinking deeply about what you've said here, and it strikes me this being comfortable with not knowing. As you said, we all come with some expertise, and we're kind of taught that, we should know, we should have an ability. And so to be able to go into a group and just be comfortable and let the knowledge come from the group and respect that those members have the knowledge to bring, and it's our job to bring it out. That's really something. And also the second one about honoring and almost respecting and welcoming the resistance of others, as seeing it as a group, and not only their resistance but our own resistance. So as I'm reflecting on what you said here, it's making me think about we need to go deep in ourselves, when we want to be a facilitator, and get comfortable in our own skin. And is that correct?
Absolutely. When I think the bottom line for me has it's been that we really are the main instrument that we bring into that situation. And the clearer we can be of what our own triggers are, who are the personality types that maybe kind of set our teeth on edge a little bit, where might be my own blind spots, so that if I'm working, and increasingly I want to work with partners because I can't see it all, and I have my own blind spots. And also, more and more, as we're facilitating groups where the big question is uncertainty and complexity, what I'm finding is that those issues that groups are struggling with, I need assistance to be able to hold that group, and so to be able to have someone, to help me see myself better. I think you've nailed it, that getting to know ourselves and realizing that's what we bring into the group is really pretty critical. It's foundational.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, Katharine, earlier about the art of hosting. Is there just one method of facilitation, or do we learn the skill and follow the process, the same process regardless, whether we're running a meeting or a group discussion or doing a consultation?
Well, to just kind of extend, I think the constant is myself, right?
Yes.
That's the constant, and that too, that sense of self, that comfort in oneself, that sort of awareness of oneself is evolving, hopefully. So that's a constant. The processes or the methods that we use are certainly going to be dependent on what is the need, what is the request. And so to have a good repertoire of methods that we can use depending on the situation, I think that's important. But facilitation is grounded on a set of principles, a set of standards of practice, and those are going to be pretty consistent. I think what's different is that there's an orientation, and the art of hosting, and it was said, and I'm going to paraphrase this. Lots of times we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're not even purely facilitating. We're almost presenting, teaching, instructing, training. So if we were to kind of consider a continuum, the training, instructing at one end, where I am delivering information and I am relying on some content expertise. Facilitating might be more in the middle, where I'm certainly, bringing out and perhaps bringing out from the group and working towards a pretty known outcome. The art of hosting has been described as really working with groups who are going places they haven't been before. So it's the working with uncertainty, knowing when to use silence effectively, and being able to work with emergence in complex situations. So how I've heard it said, and this was in regards to me, is someone said, the way you talk about facilitating is unlike what my experience has been. And I said, what's your experience been? And he said that I'm being manipulated to a predetermined outcome. And I said, you're right. I said, I have to keep in mind what some of that outcome is, but I also have to be surprised that the group and the group will may be wisely directing us to some other place. And how flexible and open can I be to allow that agenda, to allow the process that we're using to shift in response to something new and where the group is taking us. Does that make sense?
It does, and it just strikes me that there's a lot of demand on the facilitator if they actually do true facilitation and not manipulation, as that fellow had said. So what would you say the most important thing for a facilitator to remember? Like what would that be?
I wrote a note and I need to get my eyeglasses on. Hold on. I'm going to sound repetitive, but it's what are the values, and in the program I call it, what's your stance? What's the ground that you stand on when you're working with other people? And for me, it's that I know that every person comes with a wisdom and a set of experiences, maybe not an expertise, but a set of experiences that some way I want to be able to very quickly value and weave that in and know that who they are and what they bring is going to be of value somehow, somewhere along our journey together. I think that's one thing. And I think that it is, again, getting comfortable with ourselves and with not knowing and valuing the power of silence. That when I don't know, that it's perfectly okay to say so.
All right. Thank you, Katharine. So I'd like you to tell us about your forthcoming course.
Well, hopefully in a week's time, we're going to be running, I don't know, Val, I think this might be the fourth time of this Art of Facilitation, creating the conditions for effective engagement. It's a 5-part in that the first thing what we look at is just a general overview on facilitation, getting some different definitions, some different orientations. Then in the following week, we look at the values, the beliefs, the assumptions that we each have regarding facilitation to work towards every participant developing their own stance, which is a written statement that begins to articulate that. In week 3, we begin to identify facilitator competencies, and I'm inviting people to surface some of their own as well as to be able to explore what others might say according to some of the standards of practice. In the 4th week, we look at group dynamics, and I've chosen a few. One I've spoken about, resistance. We also look at stages of team development. We look at group roles. So those are some of the dynamics. And there are many, but I in the time we had, I wanted to focus on a few. And then in the 5th and final week, we look at several different protocols, different ways of convening groups, different methods that we can use. That goes back to one of your earlier questions, is there just one way? And some of the things I highlight, and it's just a bit of a teaser, is circle practice, based on the work of Christina Baldwin and Anne Linnea. Also, I look at appreciative inquiry. Again, just a bit of an overview, and I know that Kaizen offers a specific course on appreciative inquiry. We also look a bit at the World Cafe. Some of these methods are really ideal for working with larger groups. That's often been a challenge for facilitators if they're invited to work with groups of 50, 60, even a couple of hundred people. Methods like World Cafe and the open space technology really do work ideally for larger numbers. So that's part of what we're going to be doing.
Yes, and actually, Katharine, I took your first course when you first offered it, and I was just so struck by how content-rich it was. A learning about who I am and what I value, in myself as a facilitator, what my stance is, as you say, but also to learn about some of these methods and what fits for me and what fits for the situation. So it was a very powerful course, and as we mentioned earlier, it is online, and it's customized for adult learners, and so you come on when you want online. There's not a particular time that you have to be there, but you do have an opportunity to come on board during the week when it fits for you, and to watch videos, read material, do assessments, and engage in discussions with yourself and your colleagues. And so it's a very powerful course, and the reviews have been fantastic.
Thank you. I certainly have enjoyed hosting it, and in true facilitation fashion, I acknowledge that I've read every comment, and I don't always respond, because I'm really inviting what the group wants to say in response to each other, and the questions, I'll often ask questions that my hope is will perhaps provoke some deeper reflection, but I so enjoy it. I so enjoy hosting, and every group, every adult learner, thank you, I think I've used the word student, but every learner certainly brings their own experiences, and that's what always makes those online conversations so rich.
Mm-hmm. Well, so our next course opens January 30th, and we do run it once or twice a year. But if you want more information, you can go to eLearningToFlourish.com. So that's www.elearningtoflourish.com, and you can find more information about the course or to register. And if you want to learn more about Katharine and with Panache Consulting and Coaching, you can go to Katharine's website, and that's www.KatharineWeinmann.com. Katharine, I really want to thank you for participating in this interview with me and sharing this information about facilitation with our listeners. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. It's really been my pleasure, Val. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.